Hello, Star Bros fam, and welcome to episode 20 of the Star Bros.
We made it!
We made it. We are well into double digits. The doubters didn't believe that we would ever get here, but here we are.
Who were those doubters? I'm taking names. Not really.
No, I think people have been really supportive. People have been really cool to the Star Bros. So thank you, everybody, for being along for the ride. And we're at episode 20, believe it or not.
Though I have to say, I feel like we got a big announcement for us. We decided to add this to YouTube, so maybe you're one of the few that, or not few, but many that have been joining us on YouTube now.
Yeah.
As well as those that have been joining us on other podcast channels since we've launched. But I think that brought a few other opinions to the art, let's just say. Mm-hmm. And it was really fun reading those because we're very non-controversial, right? But our last episode was on Rey.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different opinions on Rey and, other women in the Star Wars galaxy. One that we'll talk about today, Cara Dune, for example.
Yeah.
And so a few people commented with their thoughts on that. And it was just fun reading those because everyone's got their opinion. We've got our own and they're all fine. You're allowed opinions, right?
Yeah, totally.
So it was our first time getting some of those negative opinions and seeing them for ourselves. Not against us, but just like being voiced kind of in the room that we're in.
Yes.
And it was really interesting just thinking like, how are we going to respond to that? And we didn't really respond, I don't think, because we don't get involved too much in that.
Yeah, and it's okay.
We're very positive.
And we support you having your own opinion, especially if it differs from ours. Like, we are cool with that. Run with it, whatever it is that you care about or you think is important about Star Wars that maybe isn't reflected in what you saw on screen or what you read in your favorite Star Wars comic or whatever. That's cool. Let's appreciate
talk about
that.
It.
Yeah.
Civilly, as much as possible. But let's talk about it because we think there can be some constructive conversations that come from all that. But anyway, we're going a little bit further. But you can now listen to us on YouTube.
Yes,
that's a big announcement there.
Maybe you are right now. Maybe the people, maybe you're sitting there at your computer and you are drinking your Dr. Pepper and maybe you're drinking your Vernors.
Oh man, you sent me a picture of Vernors this week and I wanted one so bad. I told you that I would go to Giant and get us one.
Maybe you're some bro from Michigan who went to the cider mill this weekend and now you're having a Vernors and you're like, oh man, I'm going to go to, what's the Christmas place?
Bronner's.
I'm going to go to Bronner's this weekend and I'm going to get an Insane Clown Posse Christmas tree ornament. And
Insane Clown Posse?
There's one guy who right now is sitting at his computer, like looking over his shoulder.
Hey,
and he's like, are the Star Bros? Are the Star Bros in my parents' basement with me?
This is creepy. Spoopy. This is what it is.
Yeah, it's 3 spoopy 5 me.
Wow, that was very Michigander of you right there.
I did my best.
I liked it. Really appreciate it. So, all right, before we jump into today's topic, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. There's a couple of things I wanted to mention to you. One of them's a Star Wars thing, and one of them's not a Star Wars thing. Which one do you want to hear first?
The non-Star Wars thing.
Okay. I'm going to start training for something.
Uh-oh.
And I'm really excited about it.
What is this?
I missed my chance about 2 weeks ago to compete in the first ever Delaware County, Pennsylvania cheesesteak eating contest.
Are you kidding me?
But there's one in another year's time. So the cheesesteak that you have to eat is 2 feet long.
No.
And the guy who won, how fast do you think? So let's take a step back. For those of you who don't know what a cheesesteak is, it's a massive bun stuffed with...
It's a hoagie.
It's like a hoagie-like bun, which some parts of the country call a hero or a submarine. In other parts of the world, it's called a sandwich, I think. But stuffed with meat and cheese and sometimes onions. So it's pretty filling.
Yeah.
And so how fast do you think somebody ate a 2-foot-long chunk of bread and cheese and meat?
I mean, this is the 21st century where records are getting shattered left and right. I would say 3 minutes.
1 minute and 40 seconds.
I was way off.
I think it was like 1 minute and 38 or something like that. I don't think it exactly matters because it's ridiculous.
Either way, that's way too fast.
But I've always longed to be great at something. I think this might be it.
You're great at a lot of things. You are a great bro host.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So are you.
But I like the idea of you being great at eating cheesesteaks too.
And and here's the thing with an eating competition, if you don't win, you still got a meal out of it.
That's very true. You're going to have to tell me what the training regimen looks like for that, because I'm very curious.
Yeah, I gotta figure something out. I'm sure I'll make some type of Excel spreadsheet to maximize my cheesesteak intake. By the way, if you're my doctor and you're listening, I'm sorry.
My condolences.
So yeah, I'll let you know how that goes. But yeah, I think it's next March is the next Delco cheesesteak eating competition.
That's very
I think they
exciting.
had like 50 people turn out, which
For a free meal, sure.
the pandemic is still happening. So
Yeah. Socially distanced eating competition.
these are our priorities in the Philadelphia area.
Yeah.
Is get together with as many people as you can and stuff your face with a 2-foot cheesesteak.
Sounds like a great idea. I have nothing that exciting, but what's your Star Wars related piece
Okay.
now?
So this is a little bit weird.
I mean, at this point, nothing would surprise me.
Okay. So we're going to be talking about The Mandalorian today, season 2.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. The middle chapter episodes.
I'm glad I prepared for that.
And excellent. One of them is The Jedi, which is the one where we see Ahsoka on the screen for the first time in live action. And I was listening to the Spotify music recently, because you can go on Spotify and you can hear the different volumes of the different seasons.
Right.
And that's something we could discuss too. Like how do the folks at Disney decide to break up the songs? Because they're in chunks. Mm-hmm. So like volume 2 is a certain episodes and so on.
Yeah.
But there is a track that I love from The Jedi that is, I guess, Ahsoka's theme. It's just called Ahsoka Lives. And it starts out, it's all woodwinds. Like you picture mad scientist Ludwig Göransson in his studio with his flutes and his different woodwind pipe type instruments. And the first part of it is just all that. It's just like this really soothing kind of sound. And then it builds up into this big orchestral crescendo at the end. But in the beginning, it's just like this really gentle theme on the flute. And I got it stuck in my head. And it was just, that theme was just playing over and over again.
Here's where it gets weird. Okay.
Here's where it gets weird. Yeah. And so, we're working from home. It's still the pandemic. And I'm sitting in my little makeshift office, and on my windowsill, and if you guys follow us on social media, maybe you've seen a picture of this. I have a Grogu chia pet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the chia pet has a notch carved out in the top of it. There's like a little hole where you can pour in water when you first seed the chia pet, and then the water like seeps out and feeds the chia seeds and they start to grow.
Yep.
Last couple of days, beautiful here in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, and I had the window open, and as the breeze came in, it hit that notch, and it played like a flute-ish sound, like a pipe sound.
Okay.
And in my head, I don't know. I didn't play the music at the same time, but I feel like I think it's in the same key as the Ahsoka Lives theme.
Wow. Okay. And then what happened? Did you wake up?
Ben is dialing 911 and just waiting for the end of the story.
Is this something I have to hit the last one? Don't make me hit it.
But then I was thinking to myself, how like mad scientist-y genius would it be if they made a chia pet that had they specifically carved out the top of it to be like a flute to play the same key as like the Mandalorian theme song. And here's what I'm sure didn't happen. I'm sure that didn't happen.
I'm sure that. I'm just envisioning people like creating the wine glasses now and playing that theme as a way to
that's on purpose. I think this was an accident. I think I've been working too much and I'm probably hallucinating, but I'm fine.
You might be listening to the soundtrack a bit. No, you can't ever listen to that soundtrack a bit too much.
It's so good.
It's too good. Well, that's why I asked you to lead with that story or end with that story, because I figured that would be a good segue into our Star Wars topics for today.
Okay, excellent.
I have no better way to create that segue than to just awkwardly try to get away from that crazy story. No, I'm kidding. But what is our first segment usually as part of our show?
News from across the galaxy. Pew, 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 pew.
So there was some news this week. We've been saying there's never any news in Star Wars.
We've literally
anymore.
been making stuff up. The stuff from the last 3 or 4 episodes we made up, so don't take our word for it.
We didn't make them up.
Okay, so they were real, but not really
We
exciting.
dug very, very deep.
We were reaching.
But here, we don't have to reach anymore because
No.
we got two exciting, I would say exciting, pieces of news from Star Wars this week from the source.
Yeah.
So the first one is we have a cast reveal for the Obi-Wan series that'll be beginning production in April, I think is what they said, and then coming to us later next year some point. So we got the cast list, some surprising names on some people that I didn't even know, some that we already knew. Of course, Hayden Christensen is already announced coming back as Darth Vader. We had Ewan McGregor. And then they announced a few more that, again, let's start with the ones that we expected. Joel Edgerton, which they hadn't said, but it just makes sense. For those who don't know, Joel Edgerton played in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Mm-hmm. He played Owen Lars. And Beru is played as well by Bonnie Piesse. I think is how you say her last name. Piesse?
Which did she played Beru, right? Aunt
Yeah.
Beru? Yeah.
Yeah, in those two movies as well, alongside Joel. I'm excited to see them back because here's my
pretty
thought.
good.
What's that?
They look pretty good.
Oh yeah, they've aged fine. Joel Edgerton has done a lot of work ever since then.
I'm thinking back to the moisture farm on Tatooine, and that was 20 years ago. And I mean, they're looking. They've got that Hollywood glow.
They do. But again, they've continued down their careers and played in a lot of stuff. Joel is the one I've seen more because he played. Oh, what was my favorite movie? Warrior.
You love that.
I love that movie. He plays in that one of the brothers that is an MMA fighter. He's strong. He's buff. He looks like he's been to the gym a few times. Mm-hmm. And then he played in The Great Gatsby, another big movie that came out in the last decade or so. So he's had quite the career, and he's coming back to play
Owen Lars,
which
is another not very spacey name.
No, it's not.
There's a handful of them in Star Wars.
I mean, Luke isn't very much either.
Luke,
but we need one we can relate to.
What was Woody Harrelson's character's name in Solo?
Tobias Beckett.
Tobias Beckett.
Yeah,
that's a guy from Michigan who's having some burners tonight.
I thought you were about to say Delco.
It could be from Delco.
Could be anywhere in the U.S., continental U.S. I don't know. So what I'm excited though is with the announcement that they're coming back. Mm-hmm. If they're ever going to be in a scene together, well, Luke has to be there too, right? So are we going to be able to see a young Luke?
Potentially, yeah, that would be pretty cool.
I think that would be in the cards.
That's the kind of thing that I think is like borderline fan service.
Oh, totally.
Without being like heavy-handed.
Yeah.
And I think, some people criticize, I think it comes up maybe more in like comic book hero type movies where the fan service-y stuff is really heavy-handed. And I was thinking about this the last couple of days. I think it actually came up on the video we were watching last night with our bro host Chris Ryans and Around the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Which was a really cool interview if you guys want to go check that out on YouTube. But they were talking about how sometimes fan service is a little bit heavy-handed. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's really not in this latest incarnation of Star Wars. Like the stuff that Favreau, Filoni, etc. are doing, there's genuinely satisfying stuff that's not like, check it out, guys. Look, we know Star Wars
proof right there.
Yep.
And that's where it goes over the edge, is where it's almost like the director's got to prove that they know Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to. We know you do, and you deserve the contract that you got to make this movie just because of that. So, hopefully. So, yeah. To me, I always like it. I don't feel like it gets too heavy at times. Maybe it does, but I like it too much, personally. I don't think this is fan service if they bring Luke back. I think that's natural. Like, Obi-Wan is there to watch over Luke, so you got to bring him back at some point, right? And if you've got Beru and Owen in there, then yeah, he's got to come back. Because I was joking in our chat, it's not like Jabba's running a childcare service. It's not like the Jawas are just there running a babysitting service on the side. Who are you going to get to watch Luke if the two of them are in the picture? They got to be there. I don't trust anyone else on that planet to watch Luke.
True.
Personally. I got way too fired up about that. I'm sorry.
That's cool, man.
So who else is in there?
Rupert Friend is in there.
Yeah.
Who I like a lot from his stint on not HBO, Showtime's Homeland series, which if you haven't seen it is a really cool spy series, and he plays a CIA agent who has a really tough go and then struggles with PTSD. And I think he showed like a really broad range of emotions, and he did action stuff in it and stuff like that. So I think he's really talented and maybe underrated. Benny Safdie,
I only know him from Pride and Prejudice. He played Mr. Wickham.
Yeah.
You can thank my wife for that one.
So that it's pretty different from his like shoot 'em up Homeland series where, there's explosions and he's flying through broken glass and whatever.
He's probably listening to this right now going, that's what you remember me from? Thanks, man.
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely listens to this. Benny Safdie, who I only know from reading about him, and Benny and his brother, whose name escapes me and is not listed here, made Uncut Gems, the Adam Sandler movie recently.
Oh.
Which we were just talking about Adam Sandler before we turned the microphones on.
And I was trying to get you to go watch Hot Rod after this, which is not an Adam Sandler movie. It's an Andy Samberg, but that shows you the extent of our conversation before we got on the air.
Super brainy. But real quick, so very cool cast. Very excited about the cast. One of the things that I really enjoyed was within minutes of the cast being announced, somebody went and photoshopped the visual that Disney put out.
Yeah.
They put out this grid, this 4x3 grid of the 12 cast members who they were announcing. And somebody went in and edited it. And on the right-hand side, added 3 characters, Lumpy, the. Those of you who have survived the horrors of watching the holiday special from the 80s or is it the late 70s? It's late 70s, right?
Late 70s.
Yeah. If you've lived through that, you'll remember Lumpy as being one of the adorable but sort of off-putting Wookiees.
At least it's not the grandpa. That's
it's not the
I'm
grandpa.
saying.
What was his name?
I don't care. I'm just kidding.
This one, you like this one. One of the cast members is The Idea of Sand. And there's just a picture of a pile of sand.
Which I was laughing at. I'm like, that's some smart move by Obi-Wan right there. He's like, you know what? He grew up on this planet. He hates sand. Darth Vader will never come find me here. He'll step 5 seconds on this planet and be like, he gone.
And then there's a guy who really looks like Darth Sidious or Palpatine, but it's not him because it says that his name is clearly Pal Friend Patine.
Yeah.
So I don't know who that is. I can't wait to find out. But okay. Yeah, super pumped about that. That's going to be a lot of fun.
That will be. And there are some other names on that list too. There was some of them I don't know. There was Indira Varma. There was Moses Ingram, which I think a lot of people took and said, is Moses coming in to play young Ahsoka? Which my opinion, I mean, I'm open for anything.
Sure.
So if Ahsoka's in there, great. My opinion is if you just cast the live action version of Ahsoka, and with the technology that they have for de-aging now and things like,
true,
do they need to bring in another actress to play Ahsoka, or would they have just brought in the same one?
I don't think so. And I my hunch is that it won't even go that way.
Yeah, and so my hunch is that she's playing somebody else, but we will wait and find out, and I'll take whatever they give. So
yep.
Then there was like Kumail, I can't say his last name,
Nanjiani. Yeah. He's been in a bunch of great stuff. He's kind of known for being a strong comedic actor.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, comedic actor.
Yep. So that'll be interesting to see what he brings. O'Shea Jackson Jr.
Yeah.
Ice Cube's son.
Yeah.
Who's been in a couple of things recently, and it feels like his star is rising.
Straight Outta Compton, I think, was one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Which I did not see. And then Sung Kang was another name on that list, and Simone Kessel. Again, I don't know if I've seen anything else that some of these have been in, but we can only speculate as to who they're playing. My question was, who's going to play the droid? There's always got to be a droid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So who's the droid? Maybe that's Kumail.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. It would be great to have like a comedy relief type droid.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm sure she's very talented, but do you think Simone Kessel gets Kessel Run jokes on set?
Oh my gosh. If she doesn't, then that's a failure of every Star Wars fan on that set. Right?
But do you think like she gets them like 3 weeks in and she's like, look, I've heard every version of this already.
Hopefully she doesn't. I hope that she doesn't. For her sake, she's like, okay, I'm done with this. Oh, on top of the droid, I feel like there's got to be one that's going to be playing some like non-human sentient being, some sentient species.
Yeah, true.
So who are we going to see playing a droid, either the voice or in mocap or something like that? And who are we going to be seeing dressed in a lot of makeup and aesthetics?
And it might not even be one of these people because there's surprises galore in all these series that are coming out. So
we have way too much fun with these cast announcements, I think.
It's a big deal.
It is.
People's imaginations just start running wild, and it's kind of fun.
It is. Give me whatever you got, and in the meantime, I'll just kind of speculate as to what they could be doing. We'll find out little details here and there as production starts. Production will be starting in April. So keep your news sources peeled, and we'll bring you what we find.
Yep.
So what is the other piece of news that we got this week?
We got the full trailer for The Bad Batch.
Yes, we did.
And it's on YouTube. It's very cinematic. I was saying to our bro host that the first thing I wanted to do was like run down to the local movie theater and see it up on a big screen.
Yeah.
Like the music, the sound, the way that they edited the trailer makes it seem like it's like a Hollywood movie almost. It looks terrific.
It's the real deal, man. And I'm looking forward to it just from the sense that like I like them in the last season there of Clone Wars. It was fun to get their little storyline, and people obviously liked it. They wanted a little bit more. It seems to me that they're fast forwarding the clock a bit. I'm kind of confused just by the trailer because there's at one point they have Tarkin, and then they have I think it's Lama Su that's from Camino. That's in charge of the planet that makes the clones. Yep. So maybe they're observing them. Maybe it's a flashback scene where we're seeing them for the first time, and
could be that.
That's where my mind went. I think that's a flashback scene of like, hey, let's introduce you to this new variant of clones that we've created where they're all different, more unique characteristic, and we get to see their inception. And then you fast forward in the trailer and they talk about how is Tarkin saying, I want you to go and find that troop. And I guess they're on the run from the Empire. So I at first thought from the first teaser trailer that they did that we were going to see them kind of in the service of the Empire. And maybe that's where we start.
That's fair. I thought that too.
But then they are on the run is what it looks like. So more to be seen, I guess, when we get in about what? A month.
In about a month. And between now and then, as a reminder, you can enjoy the Ewok movies on Disney Plus next week, the first week of April.
That is true.
You're like, that's true.
Have to
Let's
go
move
look
on.
at that. What?
You're like, that's true. Let's move on.
No, that's true. Move on. What else happened in that trailer? No, but really, there were some other things in the trailer. Fennec Shand was in there,
yep.
Which we knew that she was going to be in there, but they showed us a lot of clips of Fennec Shand.
Yeah.
So that was exciting to see. And then there's this boy that's in it who we don't really know that much about. He seems like he's along for the ride, and they pick him up and he goes into hyperspace for the first time, and it's exciting. He's never done that before, so I don't know who this boy is, but he looks like he's going to be a central part of the story as well.
Some of that, like the visuals reminded me of the first season of the Clone Wars when I can't remember the name of the race or species that Greedo is a part of, but do you recall that they went to that planet and there was a little kid who was of Greedo's species, who helps out some of the clone troopers.
Yeah.
And like some of the imagery of like them kind of reaching out their hand, come with us, like some of that really reminded me of that. Might not be related at all. But on the Fennec Shand point, I wonder if any of that is going to play into the book of Boba Fett. I wonder if she's going to be sort of revealed more deeply as a character in different ways that may play into the story in the book of Boba Fett at the end of the year.
Oh, you mean Fennec Shand specifically? Potentially.
Yeah.
Maybe enough background that we need so that by the time we get there, my guess is they'll keep it a little bit separate because there are still those fans that don't watch the casual fans, that don't watch the animated series. So you might see them explore it a little bit, but not make it instrumental to her background in Boba Fett.
I totally agree. I think they'll make it so that you can watch and enjoy either one on its own.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was like that's one of George Lucas's principles, right? Is you should be able to pick up any one of these movies and watch it and enjoy it. But there's a bigger story too. Yeah,
I've told you about my friend, the coworker of mine, that the first Star Wars movie they saw was Rise of Skywalker. They're like, oh, that's great, loved it. And we're like, really? You don't know the rest of the story and you still got it?
Yeah, there's still enough to hang on to there with action and excitement and relationships, whatever. But yeah, I hope that person's hooked. I hope they leaned into it and they've watched more and more.
I think they just did it as a service for their spouse.
Okay,
but
I appreciate that too.
I appreciate it all. I think my wife is a fan mostly because I'm a fan, and liked it all before, but didn't realize how deep my appreciation for it was.
And sometimes people end up falling in love with something that way too.
Oh, totally.
I used to hang out on the couch on, I think it was Sunday nights, and watch Downton Abbey with my wife, and she was the one who's really into it. What are you whispering?
I said, I don't know you anymore, man.
And I was like, this is stupid. And then I realized that this is great, and I got hooked on it. And we actually went and saw the movie last year, the year before, whatever it was. And
saw it last year.
I'm now one of those people who loves Downton.
Yeah.
But it was because I let my guard down, and I was like, she likes it, I'll give it a go.
Yeah, of course. I just mentioned Pride and Prejudice and watching that on this show. So
yeah.
We're in this together, man. we support our spouses and they support us, right?
Amen.
Let's move on to our second segment, though, before we go off on any more tangents and forget that, we got to talk about Mandalorian here.
Yeah.
Because segment 2 is our more to the story segment. We don't have any sound effects for that. We do apologize. But
if you'd like to submit a sound effect for more to the story.
Dun, 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 dun. There's mine. That's the best I can do.
That's pretty good. Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty hyped now.
It's right off the top of my head. I mean, I think I just made that jingle up myself.
That's as good as Hot Pockets or By Menon.
Actually, dude, we watched a what's his name, the comedian that does that line, that bit?
Jim Gaffigan.
Jim Gaffigan. Yeah, we just watched one of his newest comedic specials and loved it.
He's good.
He's so good. But let's get to more to the story of Star Wars, not Jim Gaffigan.
Yep.
So this week we are going to cover episodes 4, 5, and 6, Act 2, as we'll call it, of Season 2 of The Mandalorian. And these are some great episodes. I like to kind of think of this segment as the Lost segment, because segment 1 was like the search. He was looking for the Jedi, and by the end of episode 3, he kind of finds out where he needs to go to find the Jedi.
I was going to ask you about this. I was going to ask you, like, so we broke up the episodes. We broke up the seasons into chunks.
Yep.
We did that with the first season. We're doing that with this season. But that's a choice. You have to make some type of decision about the logical way to break things up and why the different chunks fit where they do.
Oh, yeah.
So I was really curious to hear how you kind of broke it up. And I think we went about it differently, but I think it works both ways.
Cool. I want to hear what yours is. So the way I thought about it was, you have segment 1, part 1, act 1 is the search for the Jedi. Then you have this one, which is kind of the lost, losing Grogu, which we'll eventually get to. But even in chapter, what is that chapter? 12, episode 4, that's where it starts. They learn that Moff Gideon is still around and that the threat is still real. Grogu is not safe, so they have to protect him even more. We see the beacon get planted on the Razor Crest so that they can eventually track him and find him again. Mm-hmm. So it's really the start of losing Grogu in this first episode. And then, of course, at the end of this, spoiler, we're going to get to it, Grogu gets kidnapped, and that's the end of this act. We lose Grogu. So then, naturally, the last act of this is going to be finding Grogu, the found. And it's not even just finding Grogu, Mando finding Grogu, but the Jedi finding Grogu, as we eventually learn. So we'll get to that in the next episode, when we cover the Mandalorian again. But that's how I thought about it. What about you?
Real quick, a funny coincidence. So you mentioned the tracker that gets put on the Razor Crest.
Yeah.
And the tracker's put on by a MandaBROlian.
Dude, I was going to get to this.
Were you? Okay.
Go.
And for those of you who don't recall, in the movie Solo, Han Solo is dispatched as an infantryman on this planet. The planet's Mimban. That's where he eventually meets Chewbacca. And it's where he has this famous line of, he says something to the effect of, it's their planet. We're
the invaders.
We're the invaders.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And I was kind of reading through and I went to Wikipedia and I was reading about this episode or this series of episodes, and you got me that wonderful desk calendar.
Yeah.
And the desk calendar is a page-a-day calendar where every day you rip off and you see what the next either character or spaceship or destination or weapon or whatever is, and you learn a little bit about it. There's a paragraph. And today was MandaBROlian.
No way.
How cool is that?
Just happened to be today.
But so I'll focus on this middle chapter.
Real quick before you do, because I want to say one thing about the MandaBROlian too, which is interesting to me.
It's just
what?
It's just a funny sentence. I want to say one thing about the MandaBROlian too.
Someone listening to us is like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. It's exactly the kind of stuff that my wife rolls her eyes at me for, like when I say, like if I were to tell her, like, I learned something really interesting about the MandaBROlian today, and she would go, "Where is that?"
Like, it doesn't exist, but it really does
check this out.
In this great world we call Star Wars, yeah, people, you gotta just love what we love in order to appreciate it.
But lay it on me. What do you got about the MandaBROlian?
I looked at the character when I saw her pop up in in this episode and thought, I just got done playing Squadrons, and Gunny is the name of the character in that in the game that is from the species, the Mimbini species.
No way.
And to me, that was the first time that I had seen a member of the species. And I was just curious, like, who is this? Like, what? We've never seen this in Star Wars, have we? And come to find out that, yeah, Mimbin is where they're from, and that was introduced to us in Solo.
But you don't see a whole lot of them.
You don't.
You hear explosions and there's mud and there's obviously fighting, but you don't see them.
You don't. So I'm gonna have to go and look and maybe be an eagle-eye viewer and find one in the series. But now we're apparently seeing them everywhere. Okay. This is the third place that we've seen them now in the Mandalorian series. So anyway, we've spoken a lot about this, but
yeah,
to me that's the start of losing Grogu. Is like seeing this shady character who as soon as they show the way they did the camera work on that, like
you just know he doesn't have good intentions.
No good intentions.
He's up to something
fishy here. So anyway, you were going to go off and actually kick us off with the episode.
I was going to talk a bit about how I thought about this middle chapter. I agree that the first part is some kind of searching. And I think the first part of the season is external searching. So they're looking for who they can hand over Grogu to, this race of wizards or sorcerers or whatever the armorer and the Mandalorian call them. But it's also kind of like, Mando is searching for other Mandalorians, which is kind of him like him searching for something about himself, and you can get philosophical about that. But I thought the middle chapter, these particular episodes, I was kind of sketching stuff out before we got together today, looking for something that was connecting everything, and I think that there's like a theme of reunion or integration that's happening throughout. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So in the siege, Le Siege, as they call it in Montreal.
Okay.
It's like the band gets back together.
Yes, it totally is.
It's the reintegration of this core group of heroes who, and if you recall, it's kind of hard to picture now, but if you recall, we'll go back to the fall of 2020, and we're all kind of waiting. When's Greef Karga going to pop up again? When's Cara Dune coming back? When is the gang getting back together?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this was that episode where the group gets back together. They need one another, and it feels like they're fully integrated again. In the Jedi, so maybe a little bit more of a stretch with this one in terms of like reunion and integration, but it's almost like Grogu is reunited with part of his identity that's been lost to Mando.
Yeah.
And that he couldn't communicate to Mando.
No, that's not a stretch. That's a great point.
And that part of him, the part of him that was in the Jedi Temple, that was somehow ushered out when Order 66 was executed, we don't know by who, all that's integrated back into him, and we get to see this really dark, sad side to Grogu. And that when I rewatched that was a bit heavier for me this time, but we can get into that. And then
and then Boba Fett, I guess.
It's Boba Fett being reunited after decades with his armor. Yeah. And again, that's an identity reintegration. He is himself again because he's put the suit back on.
Dude, I like that.
So
let's go with yours. I like yours better.
So I think the reintegration sets up the final act where these characters that are fully themselves and fully together can somehow save the day.
And somehow get then reintegrated into the larger story that we all know, which is the Skywalker saga.
Yes, good point.
Right?
Good point.
So maybe that's the final reintegration.
Boom. Okay, that's the end of the episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for joining us. We have no more microphones to drop. No, so let's get into the episode of the Siege a little bit more, because that's what we typically like to do, is kind of go one at a time. Dude, I really like that, and I'm going to be thinking about that integration piece as we go through this, because, and maybe this is part of it too, this episode finally tells us why Grogu was so important to Moff Gideon. We eventually get that unveiling. But before we even get into that, we get to see Navarro at its final, like in its all of its glory. It's been reborn from ashes, literally.
Yeah.
In this planet where it's volcanic and it was a hive of scum and villainy, with the bounty hunters all around there. The Empire was there and had a big stronghold. It had been, just recently shot up by Moff Gideon's big crew that came in. And you get to see the building that they had shot up now is a school.
Yeah.
Which I laughed at. I was like, you turned the bar into a school? Come on. Was there any other place you could have gone to make a school? But hey, it kind of works.
Yeah.
And you walk in there and there's that protocol droid that's teaching the class, which I like the idea of a droid being the teacher. Like you can put all of the knowledge in the world into the droid's head, and literally that means like it can be a perfect teacher. It should be able to know everything. So why not have droids be the teachers?
Yeah.
That's great. And if you listen to what they're talking about like trade routes. They talk about the Kessel Run at one point.
Yep.
And the Maelstrom and things like that. So they inject little pieces that you're familiar with. They talk about the new capital of the Republic, and Chandrilia, I think is the name of the planet, right? So there's little tidbits like that they throw in there. And then you get that wonderful scene of Grogu being in school.
Yeah, which I loved. And
Which is fun.
I was trying to think back. I don't think that in the first season when we see Navarro, you don't really see many kids.
No.
And that's because you don't usually bring kids where they're not safe.
You probably keep them hiding.
You keep them hiding. So that to me was a big signal that the town had turned around. Whatever you want to call it, gentrified, whatever, but definitely risen from the ashes. And there's law and order that's been established.
Right.
So Cara Dune is a marshal, and not to say that there wasn't some type of order before, but now there's a formal
Martial
peacekeeper.
law.
What's that?
It was martial law, basically.
It was rough.
Right.
And now it seems a bit, you can take your kids to school. You don't have to worry about getting shot up in the street or anything like that. So big changes in Navarro.
Yeah. You don't see any walking monkeys on spits anywhere.
Nope. And I'm sure there's some people who missed that.
Maybe. And maybe they're still there and we just didn't see them anymore, but it looks pretty civil now.
Yeah. Now they're in a, behind the scenes somewhere, and yeah, just you can get it from a shop or something.
And it is pretty much civil, except for, as we learned, there's one base that the Empire is maintaining on that planet, and it's all for the purpose of research. And it's funny that they didn't move it. I wonder if they thought, hey, Mandalorian will be back. We want to try to keep this here in case he does come back, and the asset will be close to the lab and all that stuff.
Or it was just maybe just remote enough that they thought the risk was low enough that they could just leave it there.
Yeah.
Or like any other government entity, maybe they crunched the numbers and they were just like, it's too expensive to move.
Yeah, maybe. Way to bring business thought into economics of Star Wars. We need to get to that topic at some point.
At some point. But I think something that really stands out to me about this episode is the action. And I think this is still the only Carl Weathers directed episode, I believe, but hopefully not the last Carl Weathers directed episode. Did he do one?
Wasn't this
season?
his directorial debut?
I thought he did other stuff, but
we'll have to confirm that.
Yeah, it was terrific.
It was.
And because he's got this excellent pedigree as an action star. Like, he's done a ton of really cool stuff. He's done stunts. He's done all that. And he was able to incorporate that into this. And
his best work was Arrested Development, though.
He was terrific in Arrested Development, no doubt. And by the way,
you can make us do there, man.
He made fun of himself a lot in that.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, to me, that communicates like a supreme confidence.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You can't mess with Carl Weathers because he pokes fun at himself, and he's got the guts to be able to stand up and do that. So
yes,
I thought that was terrific. But one of the other things about this episode that really kind of like transported me back to last year when the trailer first came out was there's that speeder bike scene where all of the gang of heroes jump on their speeder bikes and fly off the cliff, and they're being pursued. And some of the action in that trailer that really stuck with me the most was the Carl Weathers directed action. And it's just terrific in this episode.
You know what I thought when I watched that sequence again?
What's that?
I was like, all right, well, let's add riding down a mountain on a speeder bike to the list of things that stormtroopers can't do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They like crash into each other and explode, and only two are left now.
Yep.
That was easy.
Yep.
I laugh so hard at that. The things my mind thinks of that make me laugh. Anyway, no, you're right. The action in this was really good. And speaking of Carl Weathers and Greef Karga, the one thing that I thought was really interesting about this episode is we get Mithril back. He's reintroduced into society, and you learn that he's still got a twitch in his eye because he was frozen in carbonite, and he's back. 345
years to pay off or something.
It seems like it, but that's just a made-up figure because it just seems like he keeps chopping a year or two off every time he wants him to do something a little bit dangerous, which is kind of funny. But he's treating him really poorly. And at first I didn't know why. And then I listened a little bit closer to why. And it was because he was his accountant at one point, Greef Karga's accountant, and skimmed a little bit off the top and ran away. And that was why a bounty was out for him. He's issued that bounty out for him. He paid for him to come back. So of course he's treating him really poorly. Like, the jerk ran off with all his money. And remember when he's like, I got a lot of credits. Like, he stole all those credits.
Right, they're not yours.
They're not. So this dude is a little shady.
Yep.
As anyone that has a bounty out on them would be.
Yep.
But that's something I didn't. I was like, wow, he's being really mean to him.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of get it now.
Yep.
But he's still really mean to him.
I thought his writing was really well done. Just him negotiating years off of his sentence, basically, along the way, and taking those calculated risks of like, yeah, I'll do that, but you got to knock a little bit of time off of my ledger or however else you're keeping track of it. So
he knew that was going on. He's like, I'm just gonna be a stickler about every little thing, and that will bring my sentence down 100 years by the end of this.
Yeah. What did you think, kind of revisiting it now in the context of having seen all of the second season, what did you think of the bit where they get into the laboratory or the experimental area and they get Dr. Pershing's message?
Yeah.
And you get a little bit more information about what it is that they're up to. Now that you have more of the picture.
More of the picture.
How did that land for you?
I don't know if I can say what I thought about it now that I have more of the picture. I mean, what I thought about this time, though, if I can answer, here's me deflecting. How's that? My thought with it was, is this the first time that we've ever had the idea of grafting, or what's the word that I'm...
like genetically engineering?
Genetically engineering, or using a blood transfusion, essentially, to take someone with force sensitivities and take someone who doesn't have force sensitivities and try to make them force sensitive. Is this the first time that we're trying this?
And is that how it works? Like, I never would have guessed that. Is it that?
No, it obviously doesn't work. Like, that's what they say. Like, all of the all the hosts reject the blood and eventually perish.
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't work. And because he talks about how, like, we found a donor, we found a host with a high M count, and he says, I don't think we're going to find anyone with a higher M count. So that's issue number 1. And then issue number 2 is we ran out of blood supply from the donor, so we need the asset again. And then you find out that was 3 days ago. So now it's like, no, you're fresh on the hunt for the asset again. So it's interesting. Like, so my mind went to, well, have they never tried this before? But secondly, what does this teach you about the Force? The Force isn't something that you can just transfer to somebody now.
Yeah.
It's not like you can just create a Force-sensitive being by transferring blood. So M count seems really important. Midichlorian count seems really important in this, but there's something else. Maybe we'll get to at some point. Maybe it's just part of the Force. We don't know much about it. There's a lot of mystery behind it, and that's part of sci-fi.
Yeah.
This is the mystery side of it that we won't understand. But they go a little bit further into saying, like, even the galaxy doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure out, how does someone become Force sensitive? And here's another failed attempt at making it available to the masses.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what I was getting at in the sense that once you finish the second season, you kind of have a better idea of what it was that Moff Gideon was up to and how equipped the new version of the Empire is. But you look back at the experiments that Dr. Pershing was doing, and you look at, that message and things like that, and it feels like they're missing the mark. Like, obviously they're trying to create some type of advantage for themselves in a military way. They're trying to build an army of Force-sensitive, forever loyal Empire soldiers, but there's something about that's not working. And I wonder if we will learn more in the third season about something that, maybe gave them some encouragement that, like, maybe they're on the right track. Like, maybe some of the results from some of the tests are suggesting that it is possible. I don't know. But to me, I went back. I've watched, like, the Jedi a number of times and some of the other episodes. I've watched this one mostly, like, for the action when I've gone back and watched it. So I really paid attention this time, and I was like, gosh, going back, I'm not really connecting any dots where it's like, wow, the Empire, if they pull this off, this will be crazy. Because there's no evidence that they're on their way to pulling anything off.
Well, think about why they want to pull this off, because they're in disarray. It's been 5 years since the Empire has started to crumble. There are pockets that are trying to rekindle it, get them back to where they were.
Yeah.
And in Moff Gideon's place, like, he's wearing an outfit that you can tell is inspired by Darth Vader.
Sure.
So I think his intention here is see if...
But do you think he needs that?
What, the Force?
No, do you think Moff Gideon needs some of the, like, the...
Oh.
the cybernetic component parts that are maybe helping to keep him alive or something because of something that happened?
I don't know. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that there's some other function to it.
Do you think it's like a Kylo Ren mask where
Maybe?
it's aesthetic mostly?
Yeah, maybe
Because
it's just inspired from. I have no idea. That's a good
it looks
question.
super cool.
It's a cool idea, but I think it shows that he's inspired by it at the very least, and that he would like to, if he can be the force sensitive one that brings the dawn of the new empire.
So I didn't even think of that. So do you think maybe he is ultimately trying to like upgrade himself into?
Maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah, like he is trying to become the new emperor and knows that he can't do that unless he has the force. Because it'd be so easy for someone to come in with the force and supplant him.
See, I think I picked up on. So I think Moff Gideon's a really cool character. I think I picked up on, he's definitely menacing, scary, and he's smart, and he's got this ego about him too. But maybe I didn't think that he was the guy who like wanted to be the head honcho, who wanted to have these supernatural powers, who wanted to be the new emperor. But I could see that. I guess I just never thought about it that far.
And maybe once we get to the last act of this season, we can look into that a little bit more with that perspective now.
Yeah.
And see what is motivating this character.
Yeah.
I mean, he says this character, the Grogu, is more important to me than you'll ever know.
Mm-hmm.
So he's really critical to his plan. And all these experiments that he's running with his blood are critical to his plan. So and obviously it's about trying to create force sensitive beings, and he's trying to get donors with a very high M count who are force sensitive, and find those with high M counts who aren't force sensitive, obviously, to try to create that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's really interesting. We could go on forever about that. Maybe we'll say that until the next time we talk about The Mandalorian. But
can I put in a real quick plug?
Yeah.
If you don't mind. So Ben and I are part of and by the way, I did not introduce you at the beginning of the episode.
I thought of that too.
So I'm happy to be here with my bro host, Ben Skywalker.
And who are you?
I'm your bro host, Jan Solo.
Oh, that's right.
And we are the Star Bros. And thank you for joining us. And we're in the middle of the episode, so it's a weird time to be introducing ourselves.
Here we are, like 45 minutes in.
I forgot to do it in the beginning, so I'm so sorry.
That's funny.
But I wanted to put in a quick plug for, so you and I are both blood donors.
Yeah.
And if you download the Red Cross app and you donate blood, you can join the Star Wars team.
What a great plug.
Yes. And you can join the Star Wars team, and you can collectively track our impact that we're having and the lives that we are potentially saving under the banner of being Star Wars fans that are doing nice things.
I thought about that today. I got to schedule my appointment. It's been
awesome.
A while. And by the way, I've only, for the record, donated twice because I just recently got over my phobia of donating blood.
And it's not so bad,
needles.
Right?
It's not so bad.
You get a Capri Sun or cookies or
Nutter Butters usually.
You get something good like that.
I haven't had those since high school, and all of a sudden here they are again.
Yeah. They never went away. They were just waiting for you to come back.
That's right. It's like a Twinkie. I don't know why my mind went to that. Good thing they don't serve those there. Those are awful. Well, so last thing I want to say on this episode, then we need to move on.
Yep.
Is I love the dogfight at the very end.
Oh yeah.
It's such an iconic battle, but that image of, I don't know who to give credit to for this. I'm going to just give it to Carl Weathers. Of the Razor Crest and the TIE Fighter coming together, it's kind of spinning in circles around each other, and you just gonna see this like great, I don't know, just this great sky battle in the sky, and they're literally Cara Dune and Greef Karga are sitting there on the ground just watching this happen and unfold before their eyes.
I love that, and again,
so great.
All the credit to Carl Weathers for being able to direct action of all types.
Yeah,
of flight and on the ground, fist fights, speeder bikes, whatever. Like, just phenomenal.
It's all good. It's all really good.
Yeah.
But even then, what I really wanted to plug in this one, which was funny. So this weekend we went and saw my brother and his wife and their kids and hung out with them. And my sister-in-law made some of these really, really good macaroons.
Ooh.
Really good macaroons.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching this part with him eating the macaroons and throwing them up all over himself. And I'm just like, I really miss those macaroons I had this weekend.
Dude, they're expensive.
Are they?
Yeah, if you go buy them in the store, they can be really expensive. So there's
I don't buy them that much, I guess.
Yeah, I don't either. There's a famous chain of restaurants and delis, and they make prepared food that you can take home called DeBruno Brothers in Philadelphia, and they just opened up
I know them.
What's that?
I think I've heard of them.
Yeah, it's a great spot. I think there's 4 or 5 of them. They just opened up another one that my wife and I went to recently, and they had macaroons. They have a whole section of macaroons. It's a massive place. They have all kinds of stuff, and it's like $30 for 8 of them or something.
Jeez.
So,
well,
that's why that kid didn't want to share.
Oh yeah, that has to be it.
Because they're a fortune.
These are a delicacy, man.
Yeah, right.
Don't ever try to withhold. We've learned that. Don't withhold food from this child.
No,
he's gonna get it one way or another.
He's gonna eat it, and he's gonna barf it up on the flight home.
Yeah, which can you blame him? He was flying in circles and stuff.
Yeah.
But and he's having so much fun. Like it's become one of the best
time.
memes ever. Just to see him raising his hands.
He's having a great time.
Anyway, I'm done. Macaroons, my sister-in-law. If you want to buy them, I'll see if she can sell them.
Excellent.
All right, should we get into the Jedi next?
The Jedi, yeah, fantastic episode. What'd you think of it, man?
I mean, this was fun to watch. Probably like 4th, 5th time, because I really like this episode. I really like the character of Ahsoka. So to me, it was so great to get her in live action for the first time. And you really don't get that much from her. As I was watching it this time, like they don't really dive deeper into her. They just establish her in live action and make it so it's a bit of a teaser for her spin-off series that's to come, because then by the end she's talking about looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn. I think that's literally her MO this episode.
Yeah.
To learn where Admiral Thrawn is. Grand Admiral Thrawn.
And they don't give you a ton about her, but the bits that they give you are very like multi-dimensional, I would say. Yeah. So you get to see the tough warrior Ahsoka. You get to see the very tender talking with Grogu one-on-one Ahsoka. You get to see the mission-focused Ahsoka who's like, tell me where your master is.
Yep.
So we don't see her a ton. She doesn't say a ton, but she shows a lot, and we get to see that, all right, there's really going to be something here for this next TV show.
And that cold open with her, it just starts with the battle.
It's so great. I've
in the dark.
I've seen a lot of criticism on the interwebs. Have you been on the interwebs?
I don't know what interwebs are, and maybe that's a good thing.
It's where people do their worldwide surfing, I think it's called, on what's that thing called? Computer.
What's that thing called?
But there's a lot of criticism.
You executed that perfectly, man.
Thank you. I've seen a lot of criticism for that episode where people are like, so here's my experience, which made me think of the criticism I've read yesterday. So I watched it yesterday late in the afternoon, and it was really bright and sunny in my living room when I had on the TV. And it is a dark episode, and it's hard to see everything. And so like I closed the blinds and I could see a little bit better. But there's a lot of people who really kind of are like, the color palette's very flat.
Yes.
It's very boring in this episode.
Oh, this is a tough episode in terms of the location.
Yeah, and it's not supposed to be a nice place. It's sort of ravaged. You know, we can go back and talk about how there are parallels between some classic samurai movies and this, but it's under the thumb of like this warlord who, you know, is part of Grand Admiral Thrawn's group in some way.
Morgan Elsbeth.
Yep. And you know, it's not a happy place, and the setting reflects that. But there are people who are like, oh, I think they were just really lazy and like they didn't do a lot with the setting, and it's like you missed the point.
Yes,
you
totally missed it.
You watched it on a sunny afternoon in your living room. You need to watch it at night, and you need to sort of soak it in and just accept the environment, the atmosphere that they create and stuff. So I loved this. Is one of my favorite episodes of the whole series.
Oh, I totally agree. And by the way, this is really trying to teach you a little bit about Morgan Elsbeth, the villain of this episode, because you see this dark, arid landscape all around this city. Mm-hmm. It is burnt down. Mm-hmm. It is desolate. It's worse than Jakku, right?
It is. That's a good point.
Who would want to be there? It doesn't even look like there's water.
There's nothing to even scavenge.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're looking at it right now. There's smokestacks. Dude, I lived in I've told this before. There's a city I lived in Belgium called Charleroi, and it kind of reminds me of that in a way, because they had like these smokestacks that were like
you've mentioned
billowing
that, yeah.
smoke, sometimes that were like green, like different color smokes. I'm like, I'd never seen anything like that.
Wow.
It was a very kind of grimy area, industrial type city. And so it reminds me a little bit like it's very dusty. Like you see ash falling from the sky. And then you go into the city and it doesn't look any better, right? People are in these torture chambers, you know, it just looks awful.
Yeah.
And then you open the door to Morgan Elsbeth's spot and it's an oasis.
It's a sanctuary.
It is.
Of some kind. Yeah.
It's beautiful. So, and you learn her
Koi
character
ponds.
is to go to these planets, strip it of all of its resources, and just leave it desolate and move on from there. Like it's not pretty,
Yeah.
but that's what she does.
And when people talk about, the bad stuff of the Empire, like a lot of it bringing this peace and order to the galaxy, that's pretty. It rings of colonialism and all the bad stuff about colonialism from a bygone era, where you impose your worldview or your galaxy view on whoever it is that lives there. So I picked up on some of that in this episode too, of like, here comes the Empire and they're just going to subjugate everybody and make them live their way and just totally ravage the planet.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people are critical. They're just like, oh, it's really flat and kind of boring. And it's like, well, no, that's heavy stuff. Like they're communicating the sadness of this atmosphere.
Yeah. And to me, this is one of the most beautiful in terms of art.
I think it's stunning.
It is. You've got that shot of Grogu, Ahsoka, and the moon in the background. That's
beautiful.
Bigger than anything we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful shot. What else? There's a few other artistic, or even just like in the choreography, like when they slash the gong in half.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it's so heavy, and it's just like the way it thuds and then rolls off and thuds again.
Yeah,
so
or even
cool.
the part where she ignites lightsabers on themselves and then pulls them off, like, like she ignites them at the exact same time. You know what part I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like just little parts like that. So well executed. And remember, this is like Dave Filoni's, second?
It's his second. And I got to give a shout out to Rian Johnson on this one, because I think Dave Filoni's mentioned multiple times that part of him learning to direct live action was hanging out with Rian Johnson and being around Rian Johnson a lot while they were making The Last Jedi. And he has said that Rian Johnson was just wildly generous with his time and said, here's what I'm doing, here's how I'm setting it up, here's how you can think about this type of thing. And it seems like Dave Filoni's probably a really good student, because I think one of the things that a lot of people don't dispute about Rian Johnson's Star Wars work thus far, I say thus far because there's more coming, one of the things they don't dispute is that there are some visually stunning things in The Last Jedi.
Cinematically, it's stunning.
Yeah, and even if you're like, there's stuff about it that I don't like, or what, there are moments that are just beautiful and are just like pure eye candy. And there are things that are set up really nicely and executed in really interesting ways. And I think that Dave Filoni probably picked up on a lot of that stuff, because you see stuff like that in this episode.
And now he gets to do that from Jon Favreau.
Yeah.
He's going to be around Star Wars for his whole career.
Yeah.
And get the tutelage of all these great directors along the way. Like,
that's a good word.
Tutelage?
Tutelage.
As they say in Montreal?
As they say in Montreal.
Montreal. Say it right if you're going to say it. Just kidding. You said
Le Verneurs.
What?
Le Verneurs.
Le Verneurs. Oh my gosh. That is far from French. Let's talk about Grogu.
Jean Favreau?
It is Jean Favreau.
Is it really?
I mean, it's a French name, Favreau.
It sure is.
Totally is.
Jean Favreau.
Grogu is not.
Le Grogu.
Le Grogu. Wow. You're going to try to pull the French out of me, aren't you?
I'm going to do my best.
Le Mando.
Le Mando. The one person who listens in France just slammed down the top of his
half of our listeners have officially just like hit the pause button and they're not coming back.
They're like, these guys introduce themselves in the middle of the episode. I don't know what I'm listening to. They're just doing French voices.
Saying things that are American as French words. No.
Yes.
So let's talk about Grogu.
Yep.
Grogu.
First things first about Grogu. When I first watched this episode, I thought that the Jedi was Ahsoka. I thought that that's who they were talking about. And then...
Which a lot of people were like, she's not a Jedi. She even says, I'm not a Jedi.
Right.
She does say that.
But I thought it was all about Mando's looking for a Jedi to give Grogu to, and we found one. I thought that's what the point was. But then a lot of people corrected me and said, no, it's not Ahsoka. It's that we learn that Grogu was in the Jedi Temple. He was on his way to becoming a Jedi Master someday, years from now.
Yeah.
So we're talking about him. We're talking about discovering who he really is. What are your thoughts on that?
I think she is not a Jedi. She has said she is not a Jedi. All right. We can move past that point. But she is trained as a Jedi.
And so what is she doing? She's on a mission.
She's on a
hunting
mission.
Thrawn.
If you've seen the end of Rebels, you know that Ahsoka is, I think she's out there looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn because she's looking for Ezra Bridger. Sorry, spoilers for Rebels there, but...
How much time do you think passed between that story and this one?
Nobody knows yet, because that was a prologue or whatever that is, right at the very end there, and they don't really establish when that happens.
Ah, okay.
So it could have happened already. It may not have. My vote is on that it hasn't yet.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
Okay.
So we'll find out.
And she seems to be very much like a lone wolf. It's not like
Yes.
it's the Ahsoka gang and her friends. It seems like she's on this mission on her own. So it's probably really nice for her to run into a little Grogu and have like a tender moment of not fighting and not hunting.
Yeah, I think so. It is. It's surprising for her. Like she says, her first words to Mando are, "I hope you're here to talk about him." Mm-hmm. Right? She's just intrigued by who is this.
Yeah.
And then they communicate through the Force, and you find out his name, Grogu. You find the backstory, and it's tragic. It's sad.
It's really sad.
And you hear that, you're like, oh, this poor child.
Mm-hmm.
Like and it talks about like how he was just kind of carted around and didn't know where he was going, and it gets very dark from there.
Yeah.
And you just start to feel for him. And she
what
even
do you
says
think
like,
that is?
What's that?
What do you think that is? Do you think he has clouded over something really unpleasant? Do you think that it is a coping mechanism of his where he just doesn't want to remember what was happening?
Well, think about where we find him. He's in this bassinet. He's closed in there. We don't know how long he's closed in there. We don't know why they're holding on to them, and if it's for merciful reasons or if it's for sadistic reasons. We just don't know.
Yeah.
It gets dark because he literally is in the dark. He's being kept in the dark, either to protect them or not.
I hope that's the case.
Yeah. Like, who sweeps him away from there? And what happens to that person?
Yeah.
There's so many questions still.
You know, and it's funny because like it seems like the interwebs has a few theories that it's kind of accepted. Like there is a school of people who say it was definitely Mace Windu who saved him. And then there's another school of people who say, hey, in the last episode of the season, which we'll get to, and spoilers, when Luke Skywalker and R2-D2 show up, it seems like Grogu and R2-D2 are kind of excited to see each other.
Yeah.
Because they've seen each other before, maybe? Because R2 maybe saved him from the Jedi Temple? We don't know.
Maybe.
But those are a couple of like the leading theories that you see a lot on the internet.
Yeah. I don't have any good ones.
I don't have any good ones either. And I don't, it could be that it's somebody that we have yet to meet. It could be a new character to us.
Yeah. I mean, we know that a lot did survive Order 66. So there could be a lot of theories that are correct. And then some that we just need to wait for the heads of Lucasfilm to figure out and tell us in a story that makes sense for them to tell it.
Right.
So I'm not going to worry too much about it. But I love what they established of this character. It's that we got more finally. His name being one, but everything else too.
That was another thing that some people were kind of up in arms about. I like the name Grogu. I know that not everybody did, but that by the way, how did he get out of there? For some reason, that's one of like these Star Wars mysteries that I'm stuck on. Like I would love to know that.
Me too.
And there are certain things that are big Star Wars mysteries that I'm 100% fine never knowing the answer to. For example, the one of the big ones that I feel is like sacred space that we just don't go into is, what's Yoda's homeworld look like? What do the other species of Yoda's race look like, and what is their culture like, and all that stuff? And it's just not somewhere that Star Wars has ever gone. And maybe this is as close as we'll get to meet a young Grogu. And I'm okay. I'm okay not knowing. That's fine. But something about like who got Grogu out of the Jedi Temple, like I really want to know that. I don't know why.
Well, let's see how long you have to wait.
Yeah.
I really hope we don't have to wait too long, because I'm with you. It is one of those mysteries where, you just want to know.
Yeah.
And this episode gives you that enough of the backstory to keep it interesting. Mm-hmm. Right. To satiate you in a way that now you know a little bit more than you did before. We were dying to know for what his name is for however long. And if you still have an issue with that, I don't know what to say. But like his name to me was great. I thought it was Gorgo or Gorgu was what I heard the first time. So it was like Gorgu. Oh, Grogu. So I got it wrong the first time. Anyway,
I saw Jean Favreau on TV, and he emphasized the first syllable, which I've heard nobody else do.
Grogu
is what he would say.
Well, that's emphasizing the second syllable.
You're right.
Grogu.
That's what he said on like Good Morning America or something.
I don't like that. It sounds like ragu. I don't like that.
It does. I don't care for Grogu. That sounds like it's Grogu's first day at school. And by the way, I know a lot about this. It's his first day at school. He has a new teacher, and the new teacher doesn't know how to say his name.
Yeah, the new protocol droid doesn't know how to say his name.
Are you front row? Are you Grogu? It's
You should know.
Grogu.
What?
Huh?
What?
Carry on.
Okay. We need to move on to the next episode.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else on this one to say?
No.
Okay. The
I had to think
tragedy.
about it.
What's that?
I had to think about it for a second, but no, I'm good.
Okay. I have one more, and it goes into the tragedy. There are some great father-son moments in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, we get to see Grogu and him connect more and see how deep their relationship really is. You get to see the part where, he sips the soup from his helmet, or is that in the Siege? One of those.
I don't think it's in this one.
I think it's the Siege. But there's some great moments there, and it just kind of shows how special their bond is now.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the tragedy, you see it to the point where it makes you sad because he is realizing we are potentially on the stop where I'm going to let you go. Now, he thinks he's going to hand him over to a Jedi. What we find out is it's worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the reaction that I had as soon as I saw these sad moments of him connecting with him even more and talking about, I'm going to give you up and things like that, and kind of getting sad and choked up himself. Then it flashes the title on the screen, The Tragedy. And I'm like, you ruined it.
Yeah.
Now I know this
Yeah.
is not going to be a happy ending. I mean, we always knew that was going to happen.
We knew that something, it was going to be a bumpy road. And I think even a couple of people who were interviewed in the beginning of that season would kind of hint at, like, look, it's going to be a roller coaster. There are ups and downs on roller coasters. Like,
Yeah.
It's not going to be a straight shot to handing off Grogu to some hero and everything's going to be fine.
Moff Gideon's not done. He has the Darksaber. We need to see that in action. How else are you going to see it in action unless he comes back and is
Yep.
threatening again?
Yep. But I mean, throwing the episode title, The Tragedy, at you in the beginning.
And the weird part then after that with Boba Fett coming into the picture.
Yeah.
You're like, well, is Boba Fett still working for the Empire and he's there to take Grogu away? Like, how dare you?
In some park in California outside Los Angeles.
I wrote that down. I was like, here we are on Planet Tython, aka Southern California.
Yep. But yeah, and again, I keep getting transported back to what it was like to be enjoying this in the fall, and it's painful, but I love it to have to wait a week between episodes.
This was the second time I've seen this episode. So I had such a hard time you remember after we saw it, we went on and we started playing Fortnite. And I'm like, I just need to shoot at somebody on this game because I am so mad
That's
right
right.
now.
I forgot about
Remember?
that. You were trying to make everybody pay for taking
I
Grogu.
was like, you do not take Grogu. You didn't do it. I don't care. I'm so just like fired up from that.
Just blasting away middle schoolers.
Yeah, some middle school.
Someone must
"Why
pay."
you, noob master. What are you doing here?
New bastard.
But that's all
I know
that's
New
all-
Master. He's in 7th grade. He bullies me on Fortnite.
You've seen Endgame. Like, that's an Endgame reference right there, too.
Oh, right. You're right.
Yeah. No, what I was thinking this time was, oh my gosh, I haven't seen it since that first time.
Are you serious? Not even once?
Not even once, because it was like I had this visceral reaction to it, but it is so good.
It is
It
good.
is action packed. So it is directed by Robert Rodriguez, who is more of an action director,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. And he does so well with this. To me, the coolest thing about this one was it's so many twists and turns. So Boba Fett comes into the picture, and you think, oh great, here's Boba Fett. It's going to go down and it's going to be bad for Mando. And you're going to see like Mandalorian on Mandalorian fighting right now. And it starts out a little bit tumultuous, but then it establishes Boba Fett as a good guy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird.
Or at least a principled guy.
Yes.
A guy of personal integrity. And, if you get in the way of Boba Fett, like, it's not going to end well for you. So, he's not somebody who is shying away from violence or any of that bad stuff, but he has these principles, and it seems like he sticks to them, and he wants what he wants. He's not going to hurt anybody if he gets what he wants. And in fact, one of the things that I struggled with a little bit in this episode, and I haven't watched it a whole lot either because it is so sad. One of the things I struggled with a little bit was, like, he kind of lands, like, we get to see Slave One coming down, which is really cool.
Yep.
He lands. He's like, "Hey, I want my armor, and if you give it to me, then I'll help you out." Which is a big commitment, but maybe it's proportional to how important that armor is to him. Maybe he's like, I need this so badly, belong to my father. I just want to get it back, and I'm willing to do anything, including protecting you and the kid.
Yeah.
So maybe that's it. But for me, I was just kind of like, wow, so you came out of nowhere and you're willing to put your life at risk for a couple of these folks just to get your armor back? Okay, I'll accept it. But
Yeah.
felt like a little bit of a stretch. But yeah, I think there's some stuff in this visually too, which is unique because I think Robert Rodriguez has a style in his action movies, and some of it I think came through in Boba Fett's like hand-to-hand combat sequence with the stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Especially like the camera, it's almost like the film work is like a little bit stop actiony, where there's like the frame rate I guess is different. So you get to see like when he hits one of the stormtroopers in the head with his clubbed weapon, you can see the shattered bits of the stormtrooper's helmet flying around, because the frame rate is, I think, a little bit, it's kind of slow enough that you see the pieces kind of disintegrating. So that, like, stuff like that makes it seem like a little bit otherworldly. It's not like a natural pace or movement or any of that stuff. So I think that's kind of one of his hallmark styles. But I think another one of the things that really stuck out to me in this episode was Grogu's pretty much parked in one spot the whole time, but there's just a lot happening observing him parked in that one spot. It's not like they're all over the planet and doing different things across different terrains and different, like, he's literally just meditating.
Yeah.
And it's the focal point, and it's like the center of this episode.
You're right. And it is, but at the same time, yeah, you're right. The action is just happening all around him. He's is completely unknown to it.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting, just the sequence of some of the events to me too, because you have, first of all, like, Boba Fett is there to get his armor. And at one point you see him fight without his armor, and he's just super cool. He decides to go in and get his armor. In that, he's Mando has to set down the jetpack at one point.
Yeah.
Right, and then now he's on foot. Like, he can't actually fly up to the Dark Troopers and try to get Grogu back, so that's convenient. And then you have him, Boba Fett go and get his armor, then put it on and get into a really cool fight. Then the Razor Crest gets destroyed.
Oh yeah, heartbreaking.
Right? That's heartbreaking. By the way, if Slave 1 would have been destroyed, I think people would have been a little bit more upset.
Probably.
But like, as soon as the Razor Crest gets destroyed, he runs off and goes and gets Slave 1.
Which, by the way, I've said that the Razor Crest getting destroyed, I feel like that's an ad for Beskar. Like, there's nothing left, but the Beskar is unscathed.
Yeah.
Like, it's perfectly untouched in one piece, just how he left it.
Which, technically, that means that Boba Fett's armor would have survived, too.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's what I picked up. Maybe I don't know if that's a criticism. It was just noticing, like, oh, wow, that was convenient that, like, all these things played out to make it so that, I mean, even just Slave 1 coming in, because without that, how would have the Mandalorian gotten off the planet?
Yeah.
Right? So, again, maybe it's a slight criticism, but not really, because I loved it.
That's a good... I didn't think about if Boba Fett weren't there, how would Mando get off the planet? Oh, I didn't think of that.
You would
be
be stuck.
Yeah.
And that looked like a pretty desolate, not desolate, sparsely populated planet.
He would have been like Boba Fett. And like in 30 years, somebody would have landed.
He'd be sitting there on the rock going, how did he do this communication thing?
Yeah.
Grogu, how'd you do this?
Yeah.
So it's really good that Boba Fett was there.
By the way, speaking of Grogu on the rock, one of the things that really jumped out at me this time was when he finally makes the connection, or whatever it is, starts happening, and light starts emanating from the rock and stuff. You can see the script around the rock lighting up.
Yeah.
So there's a ring of, it almost looks like runes or something, and I forget what I forget, it's like old tongue or something. I forget what people call it. But I'm really curious about that popping up there. And then there's something similar on the throne, in the throne scene, when we got the preview for the Book of Boba Fett across the back, like the back of the throne. There's some of that. There's some of it around the Ahsoka logo.
Yes.
For the Ahsoka series.
Yep.
And I'm wondering what it all says.
We should go look that up.
We should look it up.
We should have looked
I
it
don't
up
know
for
if we
more to the
know.
story.
What's that?
We should have looked it up for more to the story.
We should look it up for that. But I think it might even take like Babu Freak hacking into C-3PO's head to translate it, because I feel like
if it's in Sith runes,
I feel like this is something where it's like a lost language or something, and I'm just really curious if the Star Wars fan universe has cracked that code yet. If you have, hit us up on Twitter at Star Wars Podcast.
Yes, please let us know on the interwebs. One other thing I wanted to say about this episode to make sure that I feel like this was a payoff of 40 plus years in the making for Boba Fett. and it does not disappoint.
No, you're right.
He is ruthless. He is, savage. And I just love it.
Savage?
Savage. He's very savage.
Yes, he is like full of confidence. It's like the scene in Billy Madison when Billy's playing dodgeball against little kids.
You just wanted to bring a Billy Madison quote here because that's what we were talking about before.
That's what we were talking about. But yeah, it's fine. It's funny because he's older, his armor's beat up and whatever, but it's like his crowning moment. It's Boba Fett's moment.
Yeah, it is. And even Fennec Shand, because you heard about her being really this what's it called, sharpshooter.
Yeah.
And you saw it a little bit in season 1, but not that much. Like, she ends up dying by the end of the episode. We're like, oh, there she goes. And I like that they brought her back.
Yeah.
And now with the cybernetics that she is in the service of
she's
Boba
like,
Fett.
look at my belly.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I got some cool stuff going on here now. But, then you get to see her in action too.
Yep.
The action in this is just so good. So if anything, I go back to this to watch the action, and it's so tragic when I see Grogu get taken off that rock, because it's like focused on him. He's like, and he gets pulled off. Even at the very end with the concept art, did you see that? Like,
it's so sad.
It's so sad.
It's horrible.
Why would you ever kidnap baby Grogu?
Yeah.
I don't care what you were going to use him for.
And then little tiny handcuffs
and the little shackles.
Which I love the memes that came out around then.
How evil are you if you own shackles that small?
Yeah, like one of them was like a stormtrooper thinking to himself, "Wait, we have little shackles like that? Are we the bad guys?"
Yeah, it's got to be obvious now, right?
Yep.
No, and even just in that scene on the ship, like, Grogu is pretty good at using the dark side of the Force. It's kind of scary.
He's in a pinch. He's good at being resourceful.
Yeah.
And poor guy's probably in survival mode, so he's doing whatever he can do to ensure his safety.
You know that at some point in the future he's gonna hang out with Rey, and they're gonna talk about, we're both pretty adept at this dark side thing, and we're pretty good people. So maybe this whole light side, dark side, we need to do away with, and they're gonna be the two that really start that.
Oh wow, that would be cool.
How's that for a mic drop moment to end this on?
I like that. Let's not go any further, because that is definitely the mic drop moment.
Okay. Well, this has been fun. I love these episodes. I love The Mandalorian season 2. This is where, it gets heavy, and these last 2 episodes to me are just fantastic. So we will get to them at some point in the future again, but we're going to talk about something else next time.
Yeah.
Not do part 3 just yet, just like we did a little bit of time between part 1 and part 2. We'll do that with part 3. What are we going to talk about next time?
So we know that a lot of you have been sitting at home for a while, and many of you are anxious to travel. And so we're going to take you on a few trips, and we are going to take you across the galaxy to some of our favorite places, and we're going to point out some distant locales and exotic places that we'd want to visit. And then I think we're going to try to pick out places on Earth that are somewhat similar to those.
Yep. So if you want to create your own create the Star Wars galaxy experience in this galaxy, how would you do that?
Yeah. Like if you were going to take a cruise with your grandparents around the galaxy and hit all your favorite Star Wars places, how could you recreate that on Earth?
Yeah.
With or without your grandparents. Grandparents optional.
Yeah. And look, there are so many planets in the galaxy. So many, we could probably do this many times over and over again. Just like we'll probably get to our secondary characters episode and do that again. If you haven't heard that one, that one's 3 Heroes and a Slug. Go and check that one out.
Yep.
We're going to do that with planets this time. So we'll each pick a few planets that we're going to visit and talk about what makes them special, what makes them interesting, why we would want to visit there, all that stuff, and dive deeper into the planets of Star Wars and help you with your vacation planning this summer.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm so excited for this one. Yeah. So make sure to tune into that. In the meantime, make sure to follow us on Twitter. We're at Star Bros Podcast. Make sure to email us if you have any questions or thoughts and you want to share with us some of your favorite planets, thestarbrospodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, we'd love to know what your favorite planets that you'd like to visit might be.
I would totally be open to that. Follow us on BROAXIUM.
At BROAXIUM.
Exactly. Have I missed any of the other interwebs that we are on? Facebook.
We're on Facebook. Check out the BROAXIUM YouTube channel. check out Star Wars Savage. These are all sort of members of our Star Wars family that we're big fans of, and we're lucky enough to kind of partner with on some different stuff. So we love getting your messages. Please reach out, even if you're angry about something in the Star Wars fandom.
We'll listen to it all.
Yep, we read every single message, but we love hearing from you guys. Please subscribe on YouTube to the BROAXIUM channel. Subscribe on whatever it is, whatever podcast platform you like to listen to, if that's your style, and leave a review. That helps us out a lot. That helps people find our show.
Yep. And as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for participating in our conversation each week, whether it's through the comments or just listening as you're doing some work and getting a nice distraction. Hopefully our voices are entertaining enough to keep you engaged and keeping you learning about Star Wars and enjoying this wonderful fandom that we get to partake in. So until next time, I think you have one more thing that you want to leave us with.
I have two more things. I just want to say thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart. We love that you guys listen. It means a lot to us. And people always say that our show is so chill, so I worry that this part wakes them up if they've fallen asleep. But that's what we got to do.
Well, that's what you need to wake them up at the end so they go to bed.
We need to wake them up. We're at your train station stop. You need to get off the train. You're almost home. It's a wrap!